Welcome. So I can confirm that we are in a higher education conference. You are like the students, you know. You are sitting as far as possible from the teacher. And thank you to our chairman, chairperson, to remind us that we are the last thing before the lunch. That's always a very comfortable position. So, I'm Denis Guibard. I'm, as said, the Dean of a French business school, and I'm also in charge within the Association of French Engineering Business School of Sustainability, and I think it's more in that role that I'm here, with a very nice question. It's over there. Why do students need an entrepreneurial state of mind? Actually, that's quite a strange question, because everybody is talking about startups, unicorn. Every day we are seeing a new app coming from a new company we don't even know. So why asking such a question? Actually, we have gathered this panel to answer this question, which is not so obvious. And maybe we will get started as soon as glasses are filled. We will get started and with one of our panelists, and that is going to be Solène, who is going to get started. Because Solène, you were not that long ago still a student, and since then you created your own startup. So maybe first introduce a little bit yourself, tell us about your company, and what was the way you went through from being at school to become an entrepreneur.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I think so. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Guipard, for giving me the first speech. So I'm Solène Dodou. I'm from France, and I graduated for the first time as an engineer in 2013. And then I continued my studies with a master's in commerce and management. And this is how I got my first exposure to entrepreneurship. At that time, I had no idea of becoming an entrepreneur myself. I had no one being an entrepreneur around me. So I just had first exposure. Then I started working on a smart city project and various sub-projects, actually, where I had to do many different activities. And then I was hired as a developer of international relations for a graduate school of engineering in France. And I had to manage quite a few different things, supporting outgoing students, recruiting incoming students, working on Erasmus Plus cooperation projects, and developing academic programs, quite many things for one single person, if I may. And it was a new job creation, so no one was doing this before me. And I actually used a few entrepreneurial skills at that time to develop the job, networking, to have new partnerships with universities, problem solving, organizing the teams, time and budget management, innovation, resilience through crisis. We just discussed it in the previous panel. And all those were entrepreneurial skills, but I didn't really realize it at the time. And I was also developing an academic program with a Ukrainian university, which was called European Virtual Venture, where French and Ukrainian students were working together on developing a startup. And so I was preparing the program with the partners, I was supporting students, and more I was thinking, okay, I like entrepreneurship, I like all the skills that we need, I like handling various activities and talking with various types of people as well. So then I realized, okay, I want to own my own company and work with people I want to work with, support various higher education institutions. So I created my company last year. And today I help universities and graduate schools develop new partnerships, establish their recruitment strategy, work on projects, and I'm writing courses as well. And that's how I came in front of you today.
Thank you very much. So what I'm getting in that you don't need to have an entrepreneurial mindset as a student to become an entrepreneur. That's one element to take away. We have another representative from a startup here, but a startup that was created in 1911. It's called IBM. So maybe I'm turning to you, Sophie. You are the
112 years old startup.
yeah. That's interesting. But at the time, it was actually I checked for the date of creation. So you are the vice president for IBM Digital Sales Center in Dublin, Bratislava, and Cairo. So seen from a large international company, why do students to have an entrepreneurial state of mind?
So why do they need to have?
Why they need to have it?
Yeah, well, I think certainly from an IBM point of view, when we try and hire, we're focusing actually on high, early professional when we hire, and especially in digital sales centers. And what we notice is that we are well able to actually train those people in what we call the hard skills, so technical sales. We have very, very good training, but we need the students to have the good raw material, which is to be curious, to be able to adapt to change, a lot of the qualities that you actually referred to before, to be resilient, persistent. So all those qualities are what we are looking for. We do think, we talk about entrepreneurship within IBM. So we need, once we hired the students, we need them to actually show us that they can do things by themselves, that they can be very creative. And I do tell them when I welcome for the first job, when I welcome the graduates, for example, I tell them, I need you to dare, I need you to really, let loose. You're here to learn, but we also need to learn from you. We need to learn the new ways of working, etc. So this is, for me, the qualities that we are first looking for are entrepreneurial skills within the students. So certainly.
Thank you. Then turning to you, Srikant. You are CEO at Workforce Development at Upgrad Education. I hope I'm saying it correctly, which, as far as I understand, means that you are addressing different type of students from the one we may have in our schools and university. Do these learners, if I'm not calling them students, really also need to have an entrepreneurial state of mind?
No, thank you.
And maybe introduce a little bit
yes,
what your company is first.
Let me talk a bit about Upgrad. We're a skilling company, headquartered in India, but with learners in about 100 countries. India is our largest market, but we've got Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and we're expanding quite a bit in the US, so North America, and Western Europe as well. We do three things. We do career skilling for professionals from age group 18 to 60. So these are people who are leaving colleges, but also mid-career professionals. We focus on what you would call transnational education, which is students from one part of the world studying in another part of the world. I heard the question about climate change earlier. That's a very pertinent question. Thank you for that. And the third business that we have is what we call workforce development, which is creating the bridge between education and employability. So given that context, I think Sophie's point is very valid, that entrepreneurship is probably a mindset. It's not just about people who want to do startups like Solène has talked about, but it's also being innovative or entrepreneurial within the company that you work for, because today it's a competitive marketplace out there. And so a lot of the programs that we're building are about creating that experiential learning, peer-to-peer, actual hands-on skills that will help our learners succeed in their place of work, whether it be something they've started themselves or whether it's them contributing to a large corporate. Because I think especially in the Indian market, which is where the bulk of our learners come from today, it is the world's third largest startup ecosystem, as many of you know, after the US and China. But it is also the world's biggest center for engineering talent. So a lot of innovation is driven from there. And so inculcating that mindset becomes very critical for us.
Okay, thank you. So we are in a conference that is student-centric. We said that the main topic of the conference is the student. But apart from Solène a few years ago, we don't have any student on the panel. So maybe let's try to have the voice of the student, because we were saying they need an entrepreneurial state of mind, but do they think they need it? What are their own feelings? So maybe, Jose, I'm turning to you as the academic of the panel. You are the Director General at UPF Barcelona School of Management. You are also holding or you held several important positions in Spanish and international institutions. Think from your standpoint, do students are interested in carrying an entrepreneurial state of mind when they come to our institution?
Well,
and how does it materialize, I would say?
Okay, the second one is a long answer. The first one is yes, and just not because I said so, because all the last reports that you may find in the accurate institutions say so. So you go for the last report that AMBA has launched, or EFMD or ACSB, let's say and the business school international reputed institutions, they say so. So either they would say that the first thing they're looking in higher education, what they would particularly to business school, management school, would be they want to create a firm, a business, or an initiative, or transform one. And then together with that, the second is entrepreneurial skills. So, and they link it to the first one. So every time more and more students want to make their own path, choose their own way, and therefore they identify those skills. And they link those skills to digitalization, particularly with sustainability, with, let's say, new values that are more connected with new generations that they were probably with us. I think, by the way, that I think we all should be students all our lives, you know, and so although some look more like a student, but we try to cover. The second is a longer answer, and I think we will have time during the panel. So how we get that? So I think she already sort of identified which are the skills. You know, so we initiated the debate, new skills for new jobs 2 decades ago until now. Things have been changing. But I will have to sum up. I will say 2 things. One is connecting the dots. Yeah, so you have to connect people, human resources, talent, and connecting the dots in terms of which are the realms you have to connect in order to pursue your project. So we talk about the STEM, we talk about traditional, more human-oriented skills. So connecting those realms of expertise, you can do it through persons, you can do it through institutions, you can do it through your own skills, but definitely is connecting the dots in both terms. And the other are more personal, so you need to have determination and resilience, to put it in simple words. So, you know, you aren't supposed to be afraid to fail, and ideally, the system, the country, the city where you work is going to eventually reward if you fail, as long as you fail for things that have to do with the market, not for something that have to be unethical. So, you know, so I'm a civil servant. I got my tenure as a civil servant when I was 29, but I would say that an entrepreneur is something that you can define versus a civil servant mentality. That's probably as soon as I got my tenure, I jumped internationally to the position you mentioned. And how you get that, I just only give 2 things. I'm spent, as you said, as much time probably in Europe like I did in the States, working in higher education institutions. This is like my 5th position as a Director General. And I said that we have to learn a lot from the debate about the US model versus, this is a global one, versus the European model. Say 2 things. I think that entrepreneurial skills and everything that is complex in terms of training or vocational training or traditional education has to be on campus. On campus, I'm not, and I think there's evidence that online, hybrid, or blended education and so on and so forth are a good complement, but are not going to substitute that. We have already that debate in the 2012 when I was at that time at Harvard University, when Harvard and MIT joined to create edX, and they offer MOOCs online and then Coursera and so on and so forth. Where I said that it was the end of traditional formal education. Well, I haven't seen the end of 10 years, but if you saw the Boston Globe or the New York Times or the Economies, you see that it was the end. And something happened with COVID, with online. Again, I said, okay, now this is going to be the end of particularly for the skills that we need for a complex and more diverse and problem-solving society. What you need is to have the experience in the classroom and, as connecting with the previous panel, in the dorms. So the more you have the student connected to the campus, the better. The more international is the campus, the better. And then if you have to choose, let's say, on campus education, I think that so far, entrepreneurship is concerned, the liberal arts college model is better than the one we have in Europe in terms of, generating, I don't know, when we are 18 to start already like happening in the continent, if you're going to be an engineer, an architect, lawyer, or so on and so forth, I think it's better to have, a model of 2 years in which you are finding out your way with good mentorship, and then to have a concentration, and then jump to the job market, and then have a master experience. So those two. There are many things good that we do in Europe, but I think so far entrepreneurship is concerned, those two basics of what's the model we need to, in order to generate those skills, those will be my starting points.
Thank you. So students are interested in getting an entrepreneurial state of mind. What about yours, Srikant? Your learners are also asking for that, looking for this entrepreneurial state of mind?
They are. I think I'd like to go back to what Jose said. I think first of all, learning is lifelong. So we see that. And at least what we see from our learners is obviously the paradigm of expectations has changed from 20, 25 years ago. You joined a company, you try to build a long career, but today people are looking at careers as discrete stints. And some of those stints could be in large corporates, they could be in academia, they could be startups, they could be things that they do themselves. Which means that learners very quickly are going to have to develop new sets of skills. And that's why being able to adapt to new situations is important. And so our learners across the board are looking at entrepreneurial skills for sure. I'll take a simple example. We've all talked about ChatGPT, right? I mean, and we all know Gen AI is probably the buzzword. Now the question is whether you're a data scientist or whether you're a psychologist or whether you're a medical practitioner. Today, to use Gen AI, you need to know how to prompt the engine effectively. So having some basic prompt engineering tools is very important. So there are going to be bunches of skills like that that help you use technology in different ways, irrespective of what you do. And that's very critical. And that is learning all the time.
Yeah, and I have to say that even in large corporations, we learn all the time. I've done 58 hours of learning since the start of this year. Everybody goes through a huge amount of learnings. And we have to keep current with our skills, but we have to also keep really adaptable. So that's another point that I wanted to add maybe to the list of skills that are really crucial, is the fact that people within the workplace need to adapt to change. So if IBM is 112 years old, it's because we have changed so many times. We have transformed from within the services we sell, but even our workforce. So it's really super important that people can adapt to change and adapt very fast. I've been 30 years in the tech industry. I've done 13 roles so far. I say so far because I change pretty much every 2 to 3 years. So we need to really be able, and our workforce, everybody at all levels needs to be able to adapt. Not only to take a job or to be hired in a job because they are the best person for that job, but because they are the best person that can adapt to the future jobs and how the company is going to evolve. So that is super important, I think. So that's why I think even though we are a big, large corporation, we do have people joining us that say, so, well, why would I stay with IBM for so long? How come I've been in IBM for 21 years. And when I started in IBM, I never thought I would stay more than 2 years. Even then, back then, I was thinking, well, I stay, maybe I'll do 2 jobs and then I go and do something else. But it's all the opportunities that a large corporation can give to you. And actually, I find that I've been able to transform myself many times over. I've done sales roles, I've done sales ops roles, I've been chief marketing officer in France, in MIE, now I'm digital sales leader. So I have been able to, I've been given a chance and I've been able to reinvent myself as well. So this is the type of skills that we are looking for. And I think there are things that universities can do to help us for the people that when they come into the industry, that they are more ready to take on the roles. Things like, I know that a lot of our sellers now, they come in, they're really eager to progress, they want to learn, they're 1 foot in the door and they want to know what's the next job. But they all have, this curiosity, they have the ability to, take a phone, shoot themselves in do a video on the fly, be on social media, really network in a digital way. So those are skills that can be really taught within universities and schools. including design thinking and all those type of skills.
Yeah, we'll come to that. But to follow up with you, Sophie, in your recruitment, is the entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship a question that is coming on the table? Either you are asking it, or the student or the candidate are asking question, what the company is offering, what are the possibilities, what can I do?
Yeah, for sure. So the students will be really interesting to know. First of all, number one question is around flexibility. You know, can we work in an hybrid mode? Do I have to come to the office every day? So this is coming really very quickly in the interview process. We certainly are checking, and more I'm asking. When I started the job in Dublin here in the sales center, it was a mandatory for the sellers to be hired to have 3 years of experience in sales. And we completely turned that on its head and said, actually now we don't actually look for sales skills when we're recruiting. If they have it, it's a nice to have, but this is not a mandatory anymore, because we can do that ourselves from within. We can train them to be good sellers. But what we can train them on is to know how to network, to know how to, evaluate, how to say, behave themselves with the hierarchy, for example, or how do they implement a tool. That we had the worldwide tool leader here with us last week, and he said, "Oh, we have all those tools. We need the sellers to adopt them and to really embrace them so that we increase our productivity." But then he said, "I don't want to give them a script on how to use the tool. I want them to go and experience it and find the best way to work it and tell us. Come back and share that with their peers." So yes, it comes up in the interview. The other thing that comes up is, I know that's a topic that's dear to your heart, is sustainability. What do we do as a company before they embark to work with someone? They want to make sure that the company is ethical, that we have environmental focus and all those things.
Yeah.
And then, if I can just add, completely agree. So, look, we get to deal with a lot of corporates because we're a skilling company and we see what they look for when they hire. And I've had the fortune of working with big companies before, Infosys and Capgemini for many years, for almost 20 years. And I think there are 3 things we see companies looking for when they hire that's probably different from core technical skills today, and it's become more prevalent in the last probably 5 years. The first is the ability to take a risk. That's important, because unless you're taking a risk, you just stick within the box. You've got to think outside the box. I think the second part is the ability to learn quickly. That's, again, the context is changing, especially in tech services or banking and across other industries. And I think the third part that becomes very important, especially in a hybrid work environment, is work from home, is what I'd call social connection skills, whether it be virtually or live. And these are sort of attributes that companies are inculcating more and more into their hiring processes than ever before.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because all of you, at one stage or another of this discussion, mentioned some of the skill related to entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurial state of mind. Nearly no technical skill. We have the image of a startup being created in a garage in the Silicon Valley with some geeks working on computers. You didn't mention that at all. Does it mean that technical skills are not needed? No business skills? You mentioned merely only what we call soft skills, with the fuzzy definition of what it is. So are these skills gone? No more needed to create new businesses?
We're a startup. We're about 8 years old. We're a scale-up, if I call it that. And I'd say that obviously you need a lot of technical skills, but that's table stakes. That's par for the course. Entrepreneurship, like anything else, is a team sport. It's not an individual sport, much as the hype might lead you to believe it is. And therefore, yes, you need the technical know-how, but you can probably find the technical know-how somewhere in the world. The question is, how do you stitch it together into a meaningful value proposition? So I would argue that some of the other skills we've talked about are equally important and probably harder to find.
Okay, maybe you want to comment on that?
Yes, hoping on that. It's like universities are a good place to develop those skills, even more today, because they provide the conditions and the facilities for students to learn. Universities are the place where there is education, where there is research, where there is industry, all in the same place, and all needing to learn from one another, because the industries are evolving, as well as the student mindset as well, especially since COVID. I think young people want something else. And universities, it has been mentioned earlier also, are a safe space to fail. And we need to show students that it's okay to fail. So we are from the French culture, and it's not in the French culture to really emphasize on it's okay to fail. And I've been in a few Asian countries before, and I've kept that with me when I came back in France. And that's how I got the courage, I think, to start my own company and to show students that, okay, if you fail in university, it's okay. You will have professors, you will have professional people who will be here for you. And the earlier you fail, the earlier you will learn how to build on it and how to move on and how to deal with frustration. Because I've been teaching last year, and what I feel, okay, they are not so far from me in age, but they really have issues with dealing with frustration, probably because of COVID, also mentioned all the crisis. But universities are the best place to do that. And of course, if they cannot learn in university, they can do it later, but even for executive education, for example.
Yeah. It's not in the French culture, and it's not generally in the continent culture. And you can see the data. Smaller countries that have a more Calvinist approach, they are more tense to and the larger ones and more Catholic, they are more risk adverse. There are many data about that. And it's true that it depends in which environment you go in education also, and in your sociocultural background that you may have changed, but the risk adverse is more in that culture than the other one. And you may have, like happening in top American colleges and schools, professional schools, that you have a huge amount of international students. So then again, which are the international students? Are those normally less risk adverse? Instead to go around the corner to the university and stay with her mom cooking, they decide to go abroad. Sometimes they might have the means, sometimes they might have a scholarship, I've been traveling, and going to students and universities all over the world with scholarships. So that's part of the culture, and you don't change this because you introduce a subject or another. It's more about which is the culture change that you may generate along the years on campus. So that's why precisely, because those are really top-rooted mentalities, and of course the abroad experience that you have, of course, helps. But it helps also that you can internationalize your college, your campus, because if we will ask you for which are we were saying within the company or outside when you initiate a project, the number of international connections that you do need, the national of the different expertise that you do need, and they are gonna then again connecting the dots of different expertises, different nationalities. Also, depending of which project you want, you will need intergenerational cooperation, of course, gender balance or unbalance, depending on which is the project you're pursuing, and connected with the previous reflection, this ever long and winding learning process within the company, outside the company. I think that the dialogue that we need is the dialogue university, higher education with firms. I like to say there's the school in the firm and the firm in the school, because this has to be an ongoing dialogue, because the needs that the market has and firms have, they vary, and the speed of that change demands that we have to be learning and rethinking and going back and forward. And let's see which is the best role that tailored programs or in company programs within the company play a better role for those skills, and when you rather rely in the university, because those require a deeper transformation.
Yeah, so what we are saying is that, well, for any venture entrepreneurship, you will find the technical skill. You will find people knowing to get finance and raise money. The key question is really to put all that together and to get some of the soft skills and getting the thing rolling. And you said, Solène, that the university is the best place to do that. And is actually university and school delivering it? Is it working? How do you see it from the job market and within the company? Are we doing the job? Yeah, well, any of you?
Yeah.
Well, I can start if you want. I would just wanted to stress that actually the sales centers, I'm not saying all areas in IBM, but the sales centers are a real good continuity to university. We have 69 nationalities on site. And as you said, people really need to collaborate and work across different culture, and this is super important to us, diversity and inclusion. So how the university do the job? I think so. I come from university. I was in university in France, in Toulouse. I did languages applied to business and trades, and I finished actually my master's degree in the University College of Galway here in Ireland. And this is how I started to work in Ireland. I spent 20 years of my life here and then some in France. So I think, yes, I would agree that maybe there is less of cocooning in the universities than in the high school. When I came back to France after many years of experience in Ireland, actually people were looking at me as if I was an alien because I didn't have the French culture anymore, and then I didn't come from a high school. So, how did you get to that job? It was really people are taken, and I do think that it's the way, the spirit, the way you have to maybe fight that little bit harder, get experiences. So I just want to spend a minute on that, because for me, the most important and crucial skill is to really have had the opportunity to be embedded into a job. And we actually have a program in IBM which is called Smart Skills. So we actually we have one partnership with Trinity College here, who was on stage as before. So for example, for computer sciences, we have some experts from IBM that are accompanying some of the students. So during their projects, we make sure that we're giving them real-life projects, industry-based projects. And they come to IBM and they are being monitored every week. They have an interaction with people in the professional world, and this is real experience. And at the end of the day, they have to present to that board and to people that are really professional, and it's really working super well. So the feedback on both sides is really, really good. So I really value the fact when I look at a CV, when I'm looking to hire, if people have had that experience, even if it's within the university, I think it's very strong.
Yeah, I think
good.
I'd probably like to add, I think that interaction between industry and academia makes a big difference. I think Jose alluded to it, Sophie, you alluded to it as well. And that's what we are trying to do in a lot of our programs. When we launch programs in partnership with universities, it's not just instruction. It's also peer-to-peer learning, exercises within a group. There's a lot of mentorship thrown in with industry mentors who are working with small groups or individuals. There are capstone projects, which are actual simulations of what the industry would require. And all of these make the program a lot more real. Because, a business problem is not about can you solve an equation. It's about all the unknown variables that come in. And I think bringing that into an instruction, whether it be at the university or whether it be a blended program, is very, very critical to make the course that much more, let's say, outcome-based for the learner, for the student.
Yeah. Does it mean that any university should have an incubator to raise startup?
I mean, I'm not an expert on universities, but at least from the models I've seen in the UK, which is where I live, you take an Imperial College, they've got a very strong incubator, a few others have, and universities across the globe do, and that makes a difference. And I think having that interaction with industry, and like Sophie said, having industry professionals come in either as instructors or mentors or speakers makes a big difference, at least in our view.
Yeah. The answer for me would be every university need to have an honest path for their students on that field. So that might be something that they have the strength enough to generate inside campus. It might be connecting with the city, it might be connecting with another hub. But they need to be honest about that. They have it's not that you need to have, or you may not have the capacity to have for every field, but at least you need to have an honest path. It might be with partnership with other universities, might be with local partnership, regional or international, but it's just to offer an honest path for that. It doesn't have to be on campus, particularly if you don't have the means to do so.
Yeah, connection with practice is key for you. Yeah.
It can be embedded in the programs themselves or some kind of extra activities in partnership with other universities, as we mentioned. And I said when I was working for the Graduate School of Engineering, we were doing a program in partnership with the Ukrainian university. We had another one in partnership with the Vietnamese university, and we could see all the benefits on the students, both sides. And also we had students participating who were like first year, third year, and all together in the same groups. And this also helped for networking and other kind of skills.
Okay, then I may turn maybe to a different aspect, and you mentioned that, and in the introduction I said that I'm in charge of sustainability for all groups of what we call Grandes Écoles, which is untranslatable in English in France, but it's one part of the higher education system in France. And when we're talking entrepreneurship, innovation, we are talking growth, we are talking new product, we are speaking of increasing consumption. How does it go with sustainability? How does it go with responding to the climate change crisis? And how does it go with an expectation which is raising among the students regarding higher education institutions tackling these issues? How do you see the two going together? Whoever.
Yeah, I think creating a company is not necessarily about growth and consuming more, but how to optimize actually. And being an entrepreneur gets to that path. And students, okay, we have seen it in France, probably in other European countries, but in France, graduate students start to say, okay, we want to have sustainable schools and universities, and we want to do our part. And that's why there are more and more students who want to create their own jobs, their own company, their own solutions, especially for climate change and sustainability. I guess this happens in other countries as well.
I think there are, being optimistic, I think there are two structural major great changes that are going to help to connect entrepreneurship with sustainability. The first and more important one is that on the regular basis, entrepreneurs try to find a path, they try to find a window of opportunity where it doesn't exist. So we will agree that we need a lot to do in sustainability, so there are more window of opportunities in that front to start with. So, and the other one is the generations. The younger generation are more sensible to those issues. I said the older generations. So that is already that can with them. We can see in our classroom what they are demanding in the programs. We could get another issues, for instance, digitalization. So then we will say, okay, on a regular basis, then again, the window of opportunities come in connection with digitalization. But so that's why for those two main streets, I think we are optimistic. In this case, I think Europe also have done something that is good enough, better than the other models. It is that we have now resources for digitalization and sustainability from the European Union. And I think that is also important, the role of public institutions and also public-private collaborations in that field. And I think that is also in the agenda and is going to be here for the decades to come.
So I think for me it's something that is not a nice to have anymore for any companies out there. So everybody knows it. We have to work at it. Then how you work at it and how fast you work at it is the difference. I was actually, this morning I saw that on LinkedIn, I spotted an article that says that Forbes actually named IBM as one of the top 100 companies that is on track to actually achieve our sustainability targets and ambitions, I would say. So this is something that is super important for the students when they start to look for a job. They want to know that the company they're going to join is actually doing something along those lines. They want to know that we have programs, and we do have programs in IBM. We have the impact program, not only working on environmental issues, but ethical, the equitability. All those themes are super important for us. And we do try and put all our technology to the use of a better world. That's what we do really. So you will see examples of that. The Mayflower ship that is actually going around the world at the moment and taking measurements of the oceans to really understand, how can we better save species, etc. We do that to protect certain cities that are maybe more inclined to be flooded, etc. So we do try and put all that technology to good use, and that is important for people who are coming to join the company for sure. So we owe it to ourselves, I think we owe it to our clients, and we owe it to our employees, really.
Any comment on that?
Yeah, I think probably a slightly contrarian view. Yes, sustainability is extremely critical for the survival and, let's say, for the subsistence of the human race, no question. But I think we can't ignore the fact that there are millions of people across the world who have aspirations. And they want to lead a better life. And that is going to come by global trade. That is going to come by movement. That is going to come by interaction of ideas. And so I think there is a balance to be found. The balance is not just about travel. There are lots of micro solutions that we can find. But there is also a fundamental way of life. I mean, I read a statistic which said that as quality of life in China improves and people in China consume more meat than they did fish before, that has a bigger impact on sustainability than all the travel that all the people across the world do. Now, the question is, would you say that they don't have the right to eat more meat? I'm not the person to judge, but there are these fundamental questions that we need to address. I think as corporates, we all do a bit in pockets, but I think there's a larger coalition that needs to be addressed, which probably some countries or blocks need to take the lead on. But I think it's too complex a problem to solve right now. So all we can do right now is we all do our little bit.
Yeah, well, we hope that some of the little bit will make it. Maybe before turning to the audience, I may have a last comment and question linking with a previous session we had this morning. And we often say that innovation and entrepreneurship is in some sense linked to innovation as well, is coming from thinking out of the box, using diverse source of creativity, being openness. So I would like to make a link with DEI. Diversity, equity, inclusion. How does that relate and how could it contribute to innovation and entrepreneurship in maybe general, in practical terms, in any of the activity you have, the four of you? Who would like to comment on that?
I'd love to start because honestly, thank you. Because I was trying to think in the 10 minutes that we've left, how do I get this message across? But please, 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 if you can try, what is super important for us is to have women also in tech. And we don't have way enough. And it's really important that you encourage also your students to go into tech, even if they are women. They are very successful in all the type of jobs that we have in technology. They can earn very good money, and they are really needed in terms of the team balance. We really value the opinion. We are developing AI. It's super important that there is no bias in the technology that we develop. And if we only have men developing the technology, then guess what? So it's super, super important. I'd be very happy to come and talk to your students if you want me to. They are very welcome to come to our center in Dublin if you are based here. And if you're not, we are welcoming universities from all over the world. They come and visit us. Please bring them. And when they see the workplace and they see how many women we have and the diversity and the culture that we have, they are very tempted to come. So please take me up on the offer.
Any other comment on that?
I'm again really optimistic. I was part as an independent member of the government of Spain that finished in 2011, 2012, that passed, if I recall correctly, the second law, gay marriage law in the world. At that time, the debate, so we're talking 15 until 10 years, the debate was really rough. It was about that apples were with apples and watermelon with watermelon, this kind of debate we had in the country. And now, is that Michel Crochet said that you don't change the society by royal decree, but sometimes royal decree help to change society. And I think, then again, this generation took over that debate, and this is now is, at least, we will say in OECD countries, there's no debate about that. That takes us to another debate, more philosophical, about universalism versus relativism. That's a complete different debate. But then again, I'm optimistic because, they are demanding is that our students, the new employees, they won't take part of an institution, higher education, or firm that are not embracing values of diversity. And therefore, if your human resources, those that you have in your classroom, in your company, they embrace those values, then you have little room to do, and things will of course work in the synergy. Before I talk about the need of biodiversity, and I only mentioned gender. I just mentioned gender to start with, and I expected that we evolve. So I think, then again, I'm optimistic because of the generational change put us in a better center position according with the moment in times we are living.
No, I'm conscious of time, but I agree with what both of you are saying, but I'll keep it short. I think from a purely tech services perspective that Sophie brought up, often one part is the entry into the tech workforce, but the other part is the ongoing sustainability of diverse genders working through the tech workforce, because life gets in the way. Our social structures are such that they're set up more for men to work than women. I'll be quite open, and that's where I think there's a big role for online learning and micro courses, because then people have the ability to skill around their life as opposed to not, and that's what we're trying to do. This is a very, very important aspect for us, because once you solve the problem of accessibility and you've got people who are skilled across the board, despite the fact that they can't physically get somewhere to learn, and the fact that there are jobs today that are truly probably work from home or remote, it makes diversity a much more achievable target across genders, across ethnicities, across geographies.
Yeah, I think, and that's the point. I think, of course, you reacted to the gender diversity, especially in the tech world. We know that it's very important, but diversity is broader than that.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you said. It's also getting people, because they can be very creative all across the board from various social backgrounds, and embarking, including in higher education, people from lower income families, and they can be very, very creative and contributive as well, and that's very, very important to get them. We have 5 minutes left.
Yeah,
it might, yes.
Two short points before going to the question. Sorry, I wanted to go back to the sustainability we were talking about before. This morning we talked also about university competition that is more and more happening. There is the QS ranking happening soon as well. And I think that universities who will integrate entrepreneurship and sustainability, and maybe both of them linked, will have a competitive advantage in the eyes of students. So that's the first point. And regarding gender and diversity at large, of course, we need to include. Myself as a female entrepreneur, I can see all the barriers that I'm dealing with the outside world and with myself as well. So that's why it's important to include girls into the entrepreneurship issue, why it's important to include kids, as we said, from social economic backgrounds who are not exposed to entrepreneurship, who think that it's very complicated, they can never achieve that, it's only for families who have money, which none of this is true actually. So please include all of your students in your talks about entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much, and I hope everything Solène said is on board in the new QS rankings. Now we can turn to the room for question. We have a few minutes left. And introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Jamie Dixon. I work at NHL Stanton Hotel Management School in the Netherlands. We've recently adopted design-based education as part of our curriculum, so we do a lot of design thinking with our students, and of course all of the skills like failure, collaboration, appreciating diversity, and also the entrepreneurial mindset that are associated with that. One of the things that we are noticing is we've cultivated this mindset amongst our students, then they get into the world of work where they might not have as many opportunities as they would within our curriculum. So my question is, do you have any advice on how we can mitigate the gap that might exist in a more traditional field like hotels? Or do you see the entrepreneurial mindset as a catalyst for changing the more traditional industries?
Yeah, I think that we are doing two things in higher education institutions. One, we try to bring professionals, but definitely we are trying to be better citizens. So I think the second part of your answer is the one I share. We want our students to change the world. And we believe in the values we put in our classroom. That's because they bring them out to the world. And of course, that's something that has to encourage them to go to tough firms and to be part of the culture of change.
Yeah, and I think if you I think it can apply, the design thinking methodology can apply to any industry really. It's a matter to have the right people in the room and let them, you know, co-create, elaborate, innovate, and it will come. But if you give them that platform, I think they will grab it, and you'll be surprised with the results. So.
And earlier we were talking about collaborations also in partnership. It doesn't necessarily have to be international, actually. It can be just collaborating, for example, with a business school and have students of 2 different backgrounds work together on a project. I've also seen like a positive impact on students.
Any other question? Yes, over there.
John Foster Bedley, I'm Dean of Henley Business School in South Africa and the Chair of the Association of African Business Schools. So I love the idea of creating design thinking entrepreneurship, but when people sink into a context which is anti kind of change or very conservative due to its vested interests and its investment in, you know, things that don't change easily, don't you think universities should be creating activists as well?
Yes, I do.
Yes, they are.
I'm part of that, the role. I mean, as you know, as an education leader, I believe I'm an activist in that because I got the values from the right institutions. No room for doubts about it. I could tell you the sample. I mean, I just give an example. I'm not trying to be political. One of the best experiences I have was teaching at Harvard College. That was supposed to be seen sometimes like a conservative environment. And when you saw what was going on with diverse at Harvard, they forced the university to start forcing and start going sustainable. And those kids were fields of businessmen, senators, and they didn't follow the path of their parents, and some others that didn't come from that path. And then again, when the issue with Trump administration came, then again, those students that were supposed to be a kind of conservative, then again, they lead an activist role, you know, at least preserving the rights of women. And by the way, bracket, that for diversity, we have to acknowledge and recognize the role that leadership, women leadership in higher education institutions and in business have changed them up. I mean, the more women we have in the leadership, the better the policy for diversity across the board.
Thank you. And 0 on the screen, that's just perfect. So thank you very much. Maybe we have time for one more question? Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
I'm not managing the meeting. I done my part.
Sorry for keeping everyone from lunch. My name's Bolanle Tajuddin. I run an online art school called Black Blossom School of Art and Culture. And I started Black Blossoms when I finished university in 2015. So this journey of student entrepreneurship, it means so much to me. And I completely agree, like learning how to fail and being happy with that and keep on going regardless of the circumstances. And also I started Black Blossoms because not that I wanted to be an activist, but in the art world and within art education, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of attainment and retainment of women students. There wasn't attainment of POC students as well. And I wanted to ask you in terms of how you look at students who are sort of disrupting industries and they want to continue to work within their industry but still be a disruptor. How can students balance, not students, entrepreneurs and students essentially balance that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think my sense is that disruption comes when you connect the dots differently from what was done before. And I think that's what universities today are trying to do as well, that they allow people to learn across a diverse range of learning areas than they ever did before, because curriculums previously were very structured. But then there's a world out there of learning, whether it be companies like us, whether it be free learning that's online, that allows students to connect the dots in a way that they could not, because previously you just didn't have access. And I think that's where the change will come from. If you look at all of the innovation that's coming today, it comes, as I say, revolution happens at the edges. It's because two different streams, whether it be biotechnology and computing, whether it be something else are sort of clashing, like tectonic plates or merging, whatever you call it, and that's where innovation happens. So to me, that will apply to the world of art as well. In fact, I was reading a white paper yesterday which talked about Picasso's early paintings, going back to art, and it talked about the fact that for Picasso to paint the way he did at the zenith of his career, he had to learn traditional portraits very early in his life, because unless you learn basic techniques, you don't know how to disrupt. And there was a whole part about how that also forms a learning and machine learning. So to me, I think it's not a dichotomy. I think it's probably a process.
Thank you very much. So the question why do students need an entrepreneurial state of mind? And the answer is to be activists and to build a sustainable and desirable world. Thank you very much, and I think we can thank our panel.